So as I said, the next finding that we wanted to be able to share was on the impact of the STEM Success Center on retention. And so to talk about the impact on retention, let me share out how we changed our conceptual frame for the analysis, like why we did it, and then also how we did it. So when talking about grades, you remember that there were 3 different kind of conditions that emerged. And what's also important to remember is that in thinking about students, because we were analyzing this at the level of the course, potentially a student could actually have experienced 3 different types of courses that were offered tutoring in a different way. So you could have a student who participated in tutoring and received a stipend, participated in another course in tutoring but didn't receive a stipend, and then for another course didn't participate in tutoring at all. And there could be some combination of that across students. So the analysis was not problematic at the level of the course in terms of how to complete the analysis, because we could essentially split each person into each of those courses. But when thinking about retention, now that becomes slightly problematic, because now we're completing the analysis essentially at the level of the institution. Is the person actually coming back to the institution? So we had to reconceptualize the conditions slightly. And in this case, we created 3 different conditions. The first is, did they experience tutoring and receive the stipend? Did they experience tutoring but did not receive a stipend? Or did they not participate in tutoring? So in this situation, that first student would be categorized and experience tutoring and receive a stipend. Even though with 2 other courses, they didn't receive a stipend, at some point they experienced receiving a stipend for attending tutoring. And in a similar vein, the next student was categorized as experiencing tutoring, but did not receive a stipend. And then, of course, that last student would be categorized as not participating. So with that as the conceptual framework, let me share what the findings actually revealed. So in regards to impact on retention, whether students receive a stipend or not, retention rates were at about an 80% level. And what was interesting is that when they did not participate in tutoring, retention was at 57%. So again, let me turn things back over to Dr. Coody.
Thank you. So we're talking about all these numbers and what does it actually mean? What does evaluation mean? What does tutoring, what is the result? Well, as we said earlier on, if you participate in tutoring at a sustained level, you're more likely to succeed. And success in this case, and when we're talking about retention in this particular course, in this particular program, we're talking about students coming back to school following semester. So there's a technical definition of freshman. I don't want to bore you guys that are not in higher education about what retention is. But in any case, in this case, we're talking about if a student came to Central State in the fall, did they come back in the spring? And if they came in the spring, did they come back in the fall? That's what we mean by retention. So what we showed is that students that received sustained tutoring came back to school. Now, when you come back to school with an A, a B, and a C, you have a better attitude about school. You're a better student. And what we find is that the more better students there are, the better the academic environment for the whole school. Meaning students are more engaged in scholarly activities, students go to the library, students participate in social things. So more serious students, more successful students create an improved academic environment for the whole campus. The more studious students are, the more likely they are to graduate on time. So as you may or may not know, most students don't graduate in 4 years. Typically, we measure graduation rate on a 6-year basis. But when students perform better, they graduate in 4 years, and so the graduation rate is increased. Now that's good for the student, because if you graduate on time, you don't have loans, you get your scholarship and you're done in a timely fashion. But it's also good for the institution, i.e., universities receive federal financial aid. That is based if your student loan repayment is above a certain percentage, you lose the ability to give financial aid. The state of Ohio, because Central State is a public school, also reimburses the university based on student completion and success. So if a student from Ohio graduates, Central State gets $20,000 per student that graduate. So if we had 10 students that started and 2 of them graduate, that's $40,000. But if we're able to get 7 students to graduate, that's $140,000 to the university. So there's actually concrete financial benefits. And also, for non-out-of-state students, we get $3,000. Now, how does this affect students? The more financially stable Central State is, the more services and support we can offer every student. So this is how you go from students participating in tutoring and getting good grades to actually enhancing the student themselves and their own, and enhancing the institution as well. And also, right.
My apologies, go ahead.
No, and one thing I also wanted to mention is that Central State, 80% of our students are low income, which means they receive federal financial aid. So if students are able to graduate on time, and remember, as I said, the most important predictor of a person's success is whether you have a bachelor's degree. So if you're low income first generation and you get a bachelor's degree, you're going to earn twice as much money as a high school dropout. So that improves your own socioeconomic status, your family, and also improves society as well. Because the higher degree, the more educated a person is, the more they earn and the more they contribute to society. So go ahead.
And just to loop back to the question that was asked before about the cost of tutoring and what you shared, I guess I'm asking like how to put kind of like a kind of a bow on that in terms from your perspective of the cost of tutoring relative to the kind of the outcomes and the other financial benefits that you highlighted.
So, I was thinking about that. This is why, not because I work in higher education, but education is the best investment that individuals and society can make. Because when you invest in people and they get educated, they're more likely to make more informed choices, which is good for all of society. So when we talk about the cost of tutoring, so we offer students incentives of $100 or $200. Small change, but for students could be useful at the end of the semester. So what that does is when we talk about the cost of tutoring and we give incentives, the benefit at the end for the students personally and for society as a whole, as far as how much we're put in the program, yields a significant investment beyond the actual dollars we're talking about. It actually helps the university fulfill its mission. And our mission is to transform students' lives but through a nurturing environment by making them more productive members of society.
Good. Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you also for the individual who asked that question. Why don't we pause here for a moment to see if there are any other questions?
We do have a few questions. One is, how is the institution considering sustaining aspects of the project, specifically the tutoring?
That's a good question. I did not plan that question. So one of the things that we're trying to prove at the end of the 3-year remember, this is a 3-year funded project by the federal government. We're also working with a couple of other departments on campus that have tutoring. And as I was talking about COVID earlier, because of COVID, we've had to convert all of our tutoring to online. And we're working with other departments on campus. And what we hope to demonstrate to the university is the benefits of tutoring, how it impacts the students' grade, and how it improves retention, and hopefully that the university can invest resources to make it a university-wide activity that all students receive tutoring at one level or the other.
Very, very good. Is there one more question?
There is. Was the evidence that the incentive needed to be consistently offered, whether that's every semester or class, or did the benefits of success in class eventually replace the need to receive a stipend in future semesters?
Well, we're still giving, it's a 3-year program and we're still giving incentives. And so our goal is to give incentives until the program ends. But I will say this, although we're offering financial incentive, we found that the greatest incentive is the grades for the students and the faculty involvement. That is actually what drives students, is what are my grades at the end of the semester. They don't turn the money down, but it's the grades that they really want.
And just to add on to that very quickly, as we were working on this webinar, it dawned on me a potential approach, because I think for a while, I think I was of the mind that that was difficult to measure, but it started to dawn on me how we could approach to be able to measure, to tease that apart a bit more, and just to be able to gather evidence of what Dr. Coody was sharing that's been observed anecdotally. So stay tuned on that one. We have just a couple of more minutes left, so let me just real quickly, one, just share from my perspective what I thought the value of evaluation in this continuous improvement process was. One, I think it's just very fulfilling to be able to witness evaluation in action and to be able to see how it informed the decision-making process. Again, this is something that I often talk about, so it's really, it would often just make my day to be able to talk to Dr. Coody and the team and hear about how they're actually using the evaluation findings. And then the other piece I was really appreciative of was the willingness of the project team to implement the data systems to be able to collect the data, because as you can imagine, there's additional amount of work that goes into being able to make sure that you're gathering the right data and that the data are clean. So some of the things that I really appreciated from my perspective. Dr. Coody, would you like to share your perspectives?
Yeah, so what I will say is that, when I first got in this business, people talk about evaluation and assessment. Now I really know what they mean, is that you have to evaluate as you work on something. When they talk about process evaluation, is that as you're implementing the program, we're looking at the data that is being generated to improve what you're doing. Because of evaluation, we had to change the tutoring hours, because students said, because there were also some qualitative evaluation, meaning Dr. Rocks and our group spoke to students. We did a survey of students. So students were able to express that they want tutoring at a certain time, at a certain place. They wanted different kinds of tutors, and also were able to increase incentives. And I almost forgot to mention my program manager, Dr. Bernadette Hens. We went to her and told her about some of the things that was going on in our program, and she gave us the flexibility to increase incentives. And that was because of the evaluation. And finally, it's the summative evaluation, because we're able to show the grades and what students were earning. It let us know what was working in the program and what was not working in the program. And we were able to demonstrate the effectiveness of tutoring to students and faculty and to our funding agency.
And I should also, you were remembering to give credit to the program officer, and I should also just note that Julia Swarka, Dr. Julia Swarka, is the lead evaluator on this project as well, and worked very closely with you and the team.
Yes, she knows us very well.
Yeah. So just real quickly here in closing, if anyone has any questions or needs any additional information, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Coody. His contact information is here. And also, we're very impressed that you were able to connect with Betsy DeVos, the former Secretary of Education, as you can see in this picture. So really catching the eye in terms of really important individuals of the project. And so please feel free to reach out with Dr. Coody on that. And then also finally, you should be receiving an email in the next day or two with a recording as well as a survey. So please provide any feedback that you may have about this webinar and as well as additional topics. And then also feel free to forward the webinar recording on too. And then mark your calendars for our next coffee break webinar on April 22nd, which will talk about annual reporting. So thank you to all who've participated, and thank you, Dr. Coody, for being our first guest presenter on our coffee break webinar.
Well, you're welcome, and I'm glad because of, this is not the first time we've worked with Dr. Rocks. Our relationship goes back, 10 years, because we're together. So we're just very happy that you've provided us your professional service that have improved the project and help us to deliver, which the whole point of the program is to increase student success and hopefully help them to succeed and graduate and improve their lives, which is what this is all about. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I know that the team appreciates that as well.
All right.
Everyone have a great rest of the day.
Peace.